नमस्ते और स्वागत है आपका हमारे पॉपुलर वेबिनार सीरीज लेसन्स फ्रॉम द मास्टर्स पावर्ड बाय आदित्य बिरला सन लाइफ म्यूचुअल फंड्स के इस एपिसोड में। दोस्तों, आप में से बहुत लोग रिटायरमेंट प्लानिंग करते हैं। हम बहुत सारे वेरिएबल्स फैक्टर इन करते हैं, जैसे इन्फ्लेशन, पोस्ट रिटायरमेंट एक्सपेंसेस, रीजनेबल रिटर्न एक्सपेक्टेशंस। बट एक्सेल या फाइनेंशियल कैलकुलेटर के बाहर बहुत सारे ऐसे फैक्टर्स हैं जिन्हें हम शायद कंसीडर नहीं कर पाते, और जो कि रिटायरमेंट प्लानिंग के लिए बहुत अहम होते हैं, जैसे लिविंग बिहाइंड द लीगेसी और उनके डायनामिक नीड्स। सो और एक और एक्सपेक्ट है दोस्तों, जो हम में से बहुत सारे लोग इस पे विचार नहीं करते, विच इज जनरेटिंग द रेगुलर इनकम। हम लोग प्लान करते हैं कि शायद 20 साल 40 साल के आदमी को 20 साल के लिए कितना पैसा जमा करना है 20 साल में, ताकि वो एक अच्छे से रिटायरमेंट अपना 30 साल जी सके। लेकिन उसको कैसे रेगुलर इनकम जनरेट करना, इस पे शायद हम लोग ज्यादा विचार नहीं कर पाते। तो आज का एपिसोड इन्हीं पहलू को मद्देनजर रखते हुए क्रिएट किया गया है। आज और आप सभी के रिटायरमेंट रिलेटेड सवालों का आंसर देने के लिए आज हमारे बीच है सूरज कायली, जो कि एक इंडिपेंडेंट कोच और कंसल्टेंट है। जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं, सूरज इस इंडस्ट्री में 30 साल से हैं। सूरज ने रिटायरमेंट में काफी रिसर्च किया है, और इनफैक्ट उन्होंने सूरज ने एक मास्टर क्लास भी डेवलप किया है रिटायरमेंट पे, विच इज द रिटायरमेंट इनकम कोर्स। सो कोच और कंसल्टेंसी रोल के पहले सूरज यूटीआई में सेल्स एंड मार्केटिंग में थे। उन्होंने बहुत सारे एएमसीज के साथ काम किया है। सूरज आज बात करेंगे वन एंड ओनली मिस्टर के एस राव से। सो मिस्टर के एस इज द हेड इन्वेस्टर एजुकेशन एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन डेवलपमेंट एट आदित्य बिरला सन लाइफ म्यूचुअल फंड। के एस, जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं, वो एक मिशन पर है, इन्वेस्टर्स को एजुकेट करना और डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स की तरक्की में उनका साथी बनना। सो विदाउट वेस्टिंग अ सिंगल मिनट, let me welcome KS and Suraj.
Thank you so much, Nishant. Dhanyavad. It's going to be for me it is not only one is I am delighted and excited, and it's also a challenging session because it's like it's a session from lessons from the master. But for me, Suraj sir is a master's master. I learned a lot from him, and sometimes like a Dronacharya's and other side when he was not even aware that I am learning from him. And I had some of my colleagues who worked with him, and we used to get these conversations always about Suraj sir. And that way, he is the man who created with today. If we are celebrating mutual fund industry with SIP book, probably the first promoter of SIPs in the industry could be none other than Suraj sir. So it's indeed Suraj
Thank
sir,
you very
welcome,
much.
and I'm so glad, and it's going to be exciting conversation. Good evening, friends. Before we start, let us congratulate our Cafemutual team for their 12 years of selfless service to all of us. Making us come together, making that industry vibrant during bull market, during bear market. And it's a constantly with us, whether irrespective of the market conditions, Cafemutual, whether they're CFA or the Cafemutual ideas, the conferences, and those engagements. Every day morning, we look at our mailbox. What is today for the mutual fund industry? And a lot of good things have happened for us as they celebrate 12 years. Industry is also celebrating 40 lakh crores, and fantastic SIP book. Congratulations to each of the MFDs, RIAs, every advisor who worked for this industry, and we all look forward. But today, some conversations we will think little beyond. There is a conversation which we talk about mutual fund industry is roaring towards 100 lakh crores, and how we do. Then what is an opportunities for us in the retirement space? One, to serve for our customers, and second is what is that retirement for ourselves, as a financial advisor, financial distributor, how you plan for your own retirement, and what is that you can plan for your clients. And in this space, lot of work has been done by Suraj sir. Indeed, it's going to be very interesting. He's a thought leader, he's a visionary who have created many things. And one of these courses today he got is a very interesting piece. And the more so the conviction he got on this field and working on it. It's with this I'll stop, and I'll start. But before we go to Suresh sir, there is a opportunity. If you are looking at, there is one interesting publication done by the Niti Aayog. How India looks at 2047, India at 100. Which is predicted in one of the columns, which is about the retirement. And even recently, PFRDA has come with the vision document. I think EPFO has come with a vision document. There it talks about there will be roughly around it's 140 million people who are above age 60 and who will be looking for their pension and working for that. That is one apart. And just now, I mean, some of us would have just watched a video which is coming from Sachin and Dhoni ji, and it's like, it's about retirement. And at which I feel a lot of work is being on at this. One is on the MFD side, getting new distributors MFD kare shuru. Second side is how we can plan on many things, and all that we need to get into the Maidan, not the discussion. Now I'll get into the Maidan with Suresh sir. Sir, good evening and welcome. And it's a great honor, and this is our 21st session of lessons from the master, and probably the last session for the current calendar year. And then we look for, it's like, we want to end with somebody who is a legend, who is a veteran, and it's going to be year end reflections, what we have done right or what we have not done, what we can do, resolutions for the next year. With this, after one in your my that was my Purvashram, where your last you are there at UTI, and after that now a lot of things which have happened, and now today we are looking at 40 lakh crores of AUM and looking to celebrate, galloping towards 100 lakh crores. And if this is a target of 2030, what is that you feel industry should do from here, and how the MFDs and RAs can be the pillars, continue to be the pillars for this, I mean, to achieve these numbers?
So first of all, always a pleasure to be with you, Mr. Rao, and congratulations to the Cafemutual team for completing 12 years. Congratulations to the industry for reaching a big milestone and progressing steadily on a growth path. But from from the fact that when we look at growth of an industry, so my assessment has always been that money is very fungible, right? So whenever I look at growth from an industry perspective, I'm very keenly watching where else do people save their money, right? So when I joined the industry, we were saving a lot more in real estate and gold. And then the capital markets grew, mutual funds grew. And but today also, when you look at it, you will find that spaces like PMS and AIF, growing at a much faster clip than the mutual fund industry. You look at the pension space growing at a much faster clip. You look at even insurance for that matter, growing very fast. So my sense is that if industry really has to sustain itself on a very high growth path, it has to find answers to, that why is it that investors, go into these other industries, and what is it that we lack? So from that perspective, you can always look at a product distribution metrics, right? So on the product side, for example, I would love to see the innovations continue. So I must say ETFs was a good addition by the industry. The target maturity funds are a fantastic addition. But I think there's a very strong need to get products which compete with PMS and AIF. So the alpha generating products. I've not seen too much of work happen in that area. But one good thing which certainly has happened is the birth of hybrids as a very serious category. So I would say on the product front, the hybrid category can really be a game changer as well. Because ultimately, investors don't want this headache of where's equity, where's debt. They want to, get a return. Until they can get a return which is superior to the bank FD, many of them will be fairly satisfied. They don't want to see too much of volatility in their portfolios. So my sense is on the product metrics, I think the industry will have to continue to focus on, these areas. The second area, which is very important in my assessment, is distribution. And I think there the game has really changed. So for example, the retail market has shifted online primarily. Right. And the reason for that is very simple. When you move to an all-trail structure, the retail, there's no interest in them. Right. So just to give you a very simple example, the industry used to upfront, SIP commissions for 3 years. So if you pay a 1% commission and somebody brings in the 10,000 SIP, they would take home 3,600, and we had clawback mechanisms. So it was pretty doing okay. But from the time we banned it, when you do a 10,000 rupees SIP, you get a 8 rupee SIP. Right. So, or 8 rupee as your commission. So what has happened is the interest to serve the retail client has actually been diminishing even amongst the MFDs. So my sense is that if MFDs have to continue their growth path, right, there's a very important need to upgrade themselves to service the HNI segment. And when I say HNIs, I don't mean just the HNIs, but for example, anybody who retires, they retire with a decent corpus size, right? So that becomes a very important element that one has to look to. Because if you don't do that, your AUM will not build up as significantly. And without that, with lower margins, you can't sustain a livelihood, right? It's not that straightforward. You can't really grow. So I think those stage of thinking of MFD as a business for livelihood is also gone. You must think of it as a serious profession. I think that's a very fundamental shift, which also has to be thought, because today there's no upfronting like any other business. You have to invest in this to grow. And so how would a profitable businessman think? That's how the MFDs also have to start thinking about it. And so I do feel that from a distribution perspective, the MFDs will be very crucial for the growth. And the reason why the industry can really get there is only if we are able to really graduate them to the next level. And if I were to contextualize it with what I said earlier about different industries, so what you find is the retail players have migrated towards insurance in search of commissions, right? And the HNIs have again for commissions migrated to AIF and PMS. So mutual fund is no longer the first product that is recommended to it. But I think to industry's credit that, the fact the mutual fund Sahi campaign was very successful. I think we are continuing to see, reasonable growth in the industry. And the third piece, allow me to just complete this. I know I've taken a little longer on answering this question, but I feel that the biggest challenge really is also ease of transacting. Right. And so today, for example, all AMCs, promote that, okay, come to our website and do investments. But I think what you require there is think from a consumer perspective. And instead of offering just one AMC, you should be offering the entire suite. Right. So you have to get a platform in place, which is used rather than your own, transaction capability. And the reason is it really mimics the investor behavior. So like mutual funds say here brought the marketing together, you need to also bring the platform together, because otherwise there are too many things that keep changing on that front. I'm sure every MFD will tell you about the challenges they have faced and all the regulatory challenges that happen in terms of right from the KYC to nominations to, so that the amount of work that has to be done on the platform is quite substantial. So I do feel that that's the third piece which the industry will have to crack to get to that 100,000 mark faster. Of course, over time we'll get there, but if you really want to accelerate it, then these three are the most important, pillars which have to be addressed to keep the growth rate going.
Thank you so much, Suresh sir. Shayad we are on the expectations of जो कहे थे. One is on the product के बारे में, then distribution के बारे में, then platforms के बारे में. शायद the industry is evolving there and हम कहीं ना कहीं वहाँ पहुंचने की तैयारी में हैं और कई जगह में हम पहुंच गए भी हैं. And आगे बढ़ते हुए my request with audience is आपकी जो भी questions है you can put it in Q&A. जो भी other suggestions है you can use in the chat box so that we can take simultaneously and we can make this conversation very useful to us. End of this session, I look forward, each of us will go back with many insights and look forward to build our business in a very different perspective. There is a saying that, one idea can change your life, and here not one idea, we may get hundreds of ideas from Suresh sir. Sir, आगे बढ़ते हुए second question I would like to ask is, आप साथ साथ जो म्यूचुअल फंड आई मीन वर्किंग ऑन द रिटायरमेंट पीस, साथ साथ आप कोच भी है और कंसल्टेंट भी है. और द बेस्ट पार्ट ऑफ इट इज हमें काफी एमएफडी से बातचीत होती है. अभी मेरा 1000 करोड़ ईयूएम बना पिछले सेशन में. वी हैव सदानंद जी. Then 100,000 crores, what is the succession planning for me? And you have done some kind of a indirect succession planning and also motivating the second generation to come to the industry. I mean, your son has become one of the is into the industry today. And in this being a consultant and being a coach and being also a mentoring to the child, how you look at these roles and what is that you can look forward for largely your advice for MFDs in this space.
Yeah, so the last one is the easiest, mentoring my son. तो उसका स्टोरी बड़ी आसान है कि my son was very clear कि उसे नौकरी नहीं करनी, तो उसे बिजनेस करना है. तो मैंने उसको ये कहा कि यार मोची का लड़का मोची बनता है, राइट, टीचर का लड़का टीचर बनता है. तो मैंने तो म्यूचुअल फंड ही बेचे हैं पूरी लाइफ में, तो तुम भी एमएफडी बन जाओ. Little did I know that he'll take it seriously and actually set up a business of mutual fund distribution. Right. And so he used to work with Axis MF for some time before setting up Credit Suisse. He's a CFA level 2 kar chuka hai. He's a CFP. He's a postgraduate in public policy. So he could have done anything he wanted. But he was also very fascinated with this concept of retirement. Because जब वो public policy कर रहा था, he realized कि इंडिया में इससे बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी मिल नहीं सकती, एनीथिंग यू डू इन दिस स्पेस, बिकॉज कोई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ही नहीं है रिटायरीज के लिए, राइट? आप कहीं घूमने जाते हो तो आपको ट्रैवल करना है, तो फॉर ओल्ड पीपल वी डोंट हैव मच इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इन द कंट्री, ओल्ड एज होम्स नहीं है, सो फाइनेंशियल ऑब्वियसली इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कंपोनेंट ऑफ दैट होल इकोसिस्टम जो इंडिया में डेवलप होगा अगले 15-20 सालों में. So what happened to the industry, mutual fund industry 20 years back? We could see that अगले 20 साल this is the biggest opportunity. कि अगर आप इसके साथ जुड़ जाते हो आज, तो you are really set for life. And I think he's now 4 years in the business, and 50 crore का उसका roughly AUM भी है. So I think I can clearly see that he's doing well for himself. And though he's on his own, he's not really set up an organization and all that. At some stage, he will do that as well. Coming to the part of consulting and coaching, so again, retirement was a big driver there as well. So thought process ये था कि money is the lesser of an issue. For God has been kind on me, had a great career. So I could have retired even at age 45. I did not have waited till even 54, where I did my retirement. But concern ये था कि जब मैं उस subject को study कर रहा था retirement का, right? So I realized that the non-financial issues are very big. कि आप करोगे क्या अगले 20-30 साल? और द अदर पार्ट इज कि लॉन्जिविटी एक रेवोल्यूशन चल रही है, तो इसका मतलब ये है कि एवरी डिकेड दैट पासेस बाय हमारी लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी 2 या 3 साल से और जुड़ जाती है उस वजह से. सो आई वुड से इवन अर्बन लिविंग इंडियन कैन एक्सपेक्ट टू लिव टिल एज 100, राइट? तो जब आप 60 से 100 का सफर सोच रहे हो, राइट, तो उसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट ये था कि हाउ डू यू कीप योर सेल्फ एक्टिव, इन्वॉल्व. And I felt that if I really have to put in some effort at 54, maybe I have enough time to really decide कि करना मैं क्या चाहता हूँ, how do I want to give it shape. And but if I wait till 58, 60, yes, I would make lots more money than what I have, but maybe I may not have just the desire to do anything, right? So if I transition earlier, then I think those challenges will be, I can address them better. And so I just reflected and I realized that दो चीजें excite करती हैं लाइफ में, एक रिटायरमेंट बहुत एक्साइट करता है एज अ सब्जेक्ट, और एक सेल्स का सब्जेक्ट, बिजनेस का सब्जेक्ट, हाउ डू यू ग्रो योर बिजनेस, राइट? So I decided to just work in these two areas. So I don't do anything else. So I don't go and coach on investing, or I manage my own equity portfolio. I think I can do a great job even sharing the investment insights, but I don't do anything in that faith. I express that through my sales programs as well as my program on retirement. So that's the background of getting into all this, and that's how all this comes together. And of course, I love mentoring my son, and especially in product selection. How do you create a proposition? How do you engage with your clients? How do you acquire them? So I really enjoyed that conversation with him, because I could clearly see how does a MFD really struggle. कि clients कहाँ से लाओ, कैसे वो बड़े business करो अपने आप को, right? There's no pressure from outside, आप ही को करना है सब कुछ. So which is not easy. So as I worked with him, I learned so much of the distribution business. तो आज मैं जब देखता हूँ इस business को, I feel that I get a complete picture. I can really think like a distributor as well. As a manufacturer, you get a second-hand feeling, because you're not dealing so much with clients on a day-to-day basis. But I think that journey has got complete and exciting with what I've been doing.
Absolutely. Congratulations, sir. And my special congrats to Sparsh for taking that profession. And he is the luckiest lot because he got wonderful mentor at home, Pitaji and Guruji. And, it's and you are most well versed. I think he is going to have many more milestones, and probably it is going to be a case study for many of us. And this is also a learning for MFDs, who are little hesitant to bring their children to this business. Probably one can look at seriously as succession planning. And this is going to be a wonderful profession. This is MFD, coffee noble profession. Or within that, serving the retirement is the noblest of it. I mean, you put it very rightly. This is going, if somebody is not planning for the retirement, and in Indian context, it's very difficult because we do not have a social security, and many of us will postpone because this is the one planning in life we can always postpone because it comes later part of the life. And for some of us, unfortunately, with the recessions, changing things, sometimes intermittent retirements are coming. We are getting accepted to the things, and things are changing very faster. And area to address for many, you put it very rightly, it is not just an income planning, but a lot of other things to plan. And it's like I want to give one small information, sir. Like, I work with Aditya Birla Capital. I'm closely working with my group, and we do a lot of retirement planning sessions. We have bifurcated into 4 levels. 25 to 35. There is a retirement planning session. 35 to 45 years. There is a retirement planning session. There is a 45 to 55 and 55 to 60. Means at a 4 tranches. Everyone, its retirement is the same, but the planning and journey काफी अलग होता है. Then how they can look at what they can plan.
Yeah.
Especially 55 से 60 तक जो लोग हैं उनके लिए भी हम कहते हैं ये प्राइम ऑफ लाइफ. आपके प्राइम ऑफ लाइफ में पैसे की जरूरत है. पैसे के साथ साथ आपका इमोशंस को संभालना है और ये ट्रांजिशन प्लान करने में. बिकॉज लाइक एक स्लाइड में हम ये कहते हैं उनको, लाइक ऑल ऑफ अस एट वन ऑफ द एंड ऑफ द डे there is a RIP. Some messages will come tomorrow morning. If we are not there, one message will come and everyone say RIP, and that's all people will forget. And retirement के पहले एक unknown RIP अपने पास है. One, you lose that R is the regularity of your income, and then you are into your interest rates and inflation risk. That income is coming down. Then P is your position is going to off. How you deal with emotions? Like some of our people who retired from townships, they'll enjoy like a district magistrate, and suddenly bangla chale jata hai, car chale jata hai, then they'll be psychologically down. These are the things how MFD can plan. Recently, we also launched one program called Chartered Retirement Goal Planner in association with American Academy of Financial Management. Intention is create as many goal planners, retirement goal planners in the country as possible from MFD space.
Sure, fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir. And taking back our conversation to seriously to the retirement, you started working in this field of retirement, as you said earlier, as a consultant and coach. This is the one most exciting, and this is the one your interest area, and you contribute a lot. I remember 2 decades before when you are the one who are the evangelist of SIPs, and many of those people understood SIP, but they never understood the impact of SIP. Like today, I can show them with a statistical example how SIP can create the wealth. But जब आप शुरुआत करे थे, वो टाइम पे there is no statistical example. और आप compound की आगे सोचने का बात होती थी. And then in such case, on the retirement planning approach, what is the biggest opportunities for MFDs, and how an MFD or RIA can capitalize this opportunity?
Yeah, so if you look at any study on this subject, right, so it will tell you one thing, that most people don't think about savings for retirement, right, and they start very late. So जब आपने वो 4 cohort बताया, right, so what you will see कि जो 45 वाला cohort है, right, वहां पर जाकर थोड़ा सा seriousness आना शुरू होता है, right. So when I was looking at the same numbers, so I realized कि यार ठीक है, मैं 45 पे शुरू करूंगा seriously retirement plan करना, 60 तक 15 साल मैंने सेविंग की, पर उसके बाद जर्नी स्टिल एज 100. तो मैंने कहा पूरी दुनिया ये 15 साल के पीछे लगी है, राइट, सो आई विल फोकस ऑन द नेक्स्ट 40, राइट. एंड सो वी रियली फोकस ऑन दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ रिटायरमेंट इनकम, कि आपने बना लिए पैसे, अब इसको कैसे मैनेज किया जाए. एंड व्हाट वी रियली लर्नड वाज दैट एक्चुअली व्हाट यू परसीव as enough wealth, in most cases it is not enough, right. And I'll illustrate to very simple example. Ki suppose you have a corpus of 1 crore and you're going to withdraw, let's say 6% out of it. So 6 lakh रुपए आप ले रहे हैं, 50,000 आपकी income आ रही है हर साल. And now the reality is that we know inflation की वजह से you need more money. So now if your overall portfolio is generating 8 or 9, because आप already conservative बन जाते हो थोड़े by the time you retire, so आप देखेंगे कि जो आपका corpus है वो 2% से grow हो रहा है. Right, so what you see in 3 to 4 years time, that your corpus has also grown a bit and your expenses are being met easily. But फिर क्या होता है कि inflation इतना बढ़ जाता है कि there's an inflection point where corpus starts to recede. So our calculation showed that actually most people will run out of money by age 75, right, who think that they have enough money, and the reason for that is they will never even know till age 70 कि उनका corpus कम है. Because वो gradually, because they are earning more than what they have withdrawn, they think अच्छा मेरा corpus तो grow कर रहा है, but a stage comes where expenses overtake and it starts to hurt you. So we got convinced कि अगर age 100 तक जीना है, so most of the individuals who think that they have enough wealth, they will actually not have enough. And so what we did is we created a very simple worksheet to demonstrate कि how inflation, because you just can't visualize it. It is not something which I can visualize. I have to show you a chart which shows, and in most cases, people who thought they had enough money, they realize that by age 80, they are, getting to zero. Then, of course, as we progressed more on this subject, the issues of, medical expenses, because ultimately, you may take a medical insurance, but our experience suggests that medical insurance will almost become unaffordable in the next 8 to 10 years, right? Because the premium rates are going up very significantly, and not many people really realize. So anybody who has done, medical insurance 10 years back and now can clearly see the difference in rates. And this will only accelerate as you go forward, because ultimately you want the medical insurance industry also to become profitable. Also, we found that there'll be enough, new kind of treatments that most of your policies may not even cover in the future. So that also will happen as you really think about retirement. So whenever we look at the subject, any aspect we look at it, we realize that, oh God, there is so much of an opportunity, even when I look at just the finance part, right? So how do you deal with an economic bust? Right. So if in a 40-year period, you can have another world war, you can have another bust. And so if your equity markets are down 60% from what they are today, and now you don't believe it because last 15 years, Fed has bailed out. So after 2008, we never saw really any meaningful volatility in the market. But retiree ki zindagi mein ye sab hona hai, right? Or not only that, uska second chance nahi hai, because now they don't have any other income coming in. So we felt that all these aspects, which are, real issues with people, you need to really address. And so how does one do a comprehensive plan for retirees? So obviously the basic numbers will still remain the same, but the journey and actual experiences and the debate that you have with your investors when you discuss those subjects. So when we discuss with our clients, we talk about everything, right? So we don't start there, by the way. We start with a very simple plan कि अच्छा expenses इतने हैं, ये इतना return आएगा, क्या portfolio बना रहे हैं हम initially. But that's just an initial, saying कि अच्छा ये सब कुछ अच्छी चीज बनानी है, ये सब ingredient चाहिए, हमने उसको बना लिया. फिर उसको बनाना शुरू करते हैं. And typically it takes us minimum 2 years before the client and us are on the same page कि अच्छा this is the way we are going to manage money. So unlike child education or any other stuff where even if you don't spend too much time, you can do a one-time plan and move on. We found that retirement conversations are very intense and need a lot more time. And most clients don't give you that time upfront. And even if they give you, the situation changes very little. So we have actually a checklist kind of stuff where we take them through each of these elements. And in every quarterly meeting that we do with them. So like the first meeting always starts with, अच्छा आपने assumption किया था 1 लाख रुपए आपका महीने का खर्चा है, इसके components क्या हैं सर, आप जरा let's talk about each one of those. तो और इंटरेस्टिंग ये होती है जब हम components वो बनाते हैं, राइट, वो नंबर कई बार 2 लाख हो जाता है और कई बार वो नंबर 50,000 हो जाता है, वो 1 लाख नहीं रहता. तो पूरा प्लान ओनली इटसेल्फ गोस फॉर अ टॉस, क्योंकि पहली assumption ही गलत थी, right? So I think the trick really here is that how close do you get to reality? So unlike all other plans, a retirement plan has to depict, the closer to reality and has to be foolproof because there's no second chance. And that I think is the biggest opportunity in retirement.
Fantastic, sir. Yeah, man, you put it very rightly. It's a very challenging because retirement planning for anyone, जैसे आप कहे थे, assumptions के ऊपर चलता है. ये assumptions शायद आने वाले कल के नहीं है, but पिछले आने वाले 10 साल की भी हो सकती है. It's like, I put it in one of my sessions, like, what you have control is on your one eye. What you do not have a control in other 3 eyes. One is inflation, second is the interest rate, third is your income levels, how it will fluctuate.
Absolutely.
And then before retirement, ROI की एक ही अर्थ होता है. It is it is your rate of interest, what you are getting, return on your investment. But post-retirement, the ROI can have a multiple ROIs. Whether I need to look at regularity of income, whether I can look at reliability of income, whether I can look at rate of interest and rate of inflation, and broadly on the return on investment. This will make MFDs to convince or go with, it will become very tough. In such cases, there are some calculators which are assumptions, but what else MFDs can look at for it? What is your idea?
So the way I look at it is very simply that, you don't get into a conversation with just those calculators, right? Because every customer is very different. So what I found is there are enough individuals who have made enough and more money. So the calculators are really not useful. And there are many others who really struggle and they don't even have, adequate amount of savings. So there are these extremes. So the way I think about it is as follows, right? That I feel there are three phases, right? And there's no time limit ke is phase shuru hota hai, right? So the first phase is आपका जो savings वाला phase है, right? It can start anywhere from early 25s to, it can even go on and nobody starts till age 50. So एक वो savings वाला phase है. फिर एक रिटायरमेंट वाला फेज है जो हमें पता है कि जो 60 जब भी आप रिटायर होते हो जो भी आपने एज किया वो फेज शुरू हो जाता है कि आप रिटायर हो गए. बट ये जो ट्रांजिशन फेज है, right, that is the most crucial one, because in the transition phase you tend to really make the most mistakes, right? And because your assumptions are based on that transition phase experience. So for example, अगर आप रिटायर हुए जब इंटरेस्ट रेट बहुत लो थे, राइट, एक साल पहले, तो आप वो assumptions लेके शुरू कर रहे हैं, then you realize कि यार लाइफ तो चलेगी नहीं because interest rate इतने कम है. But we know that over time interest rates will also come up. Now if you were to invest because interest rates are very low and let's say you take excessive risk because you want to now generate some yield, then you find कि market टूट जाता है, तो आपने एक गलती fix करने के लिए एक और गलती build कर दी, right? So at least my personal view is that when you look at retirement planning, the transition phase is the most crucial phase. एंड हमारा जो बेसिक पिच कस्टमर को रहता है कि एक्चुअली आपकी जो पोर्टफोलियो आप बनाएंगे या हम मिलकर बनाते हैं विल बी बेसिस ऑन योर assumptions, राइट? सो आपके डीप सीटेड assumptions हैं, और इवन आई हैव दोज डीप सीटेड assumptions and I'll give you one example, state my own case. I thought I knew equities very well. I've been always 100% equities because PF है, तो to that extent debt तो बन ही रहा है. रिटायर हो गए तो 100% इक्विटी पे चल रहे थे कि ठीक है, वो पीएफ का भी जब पैसा आएगा वो भी प्लान तो इक्विटी में डालने का था, राइट? बट देन कोविड हैपेंड, राइट? एंड सडनली आई रियलाइज कि हाँ यार, एज अ कंसल्टेंट तो टाइम लगेगा पैसा बनने में, राइट? एंड आई हैव नॉट रियली बिल्ड इनफ बफर्स ऑन द डेट साइड. एंड सडनली आई फेल्ट कि हाँ यार, ये एसेट एलोकेशन जो हम कहते थे इट रियली मेक सेंस बिकॉज माय होल रिस्क परसेप्शन चेंज. So I started realizing कि risk perception, risk assessment is also a dynamic factor. So ऐसा नहीं है कि आज आप रिस्क लेने को तैयार हैं, कल नहीं है, ये भी phases में change होगा, right? And then I started realizing that basically problem ये है कि my assumptions lead to a portfolio, and that portfolio can become very skewed because of those assumptions, right? And as a result, I hurt myself. So हमने, the way we started addressing was we used to ask people कि अच्छा, आप छोड़िए ये बात का, आपका पोर्टफोलियो कहाँ पर है? अगर आज आपके पास सेम पैसा होता तो आप क्या पोर्टफोलियो बनाते, राइट? एंड देन वी शो देम कि ये आपने ही पोर्टफोलियो बनाया और ये आपका एक्चुअल पोर्टफोलियो, राइट? इसमें ये जमीन आसमान का फर्क क्यों है, राइट? एंड बिलीव मी, आई हैव सीन सो मेनी, आई हैव डन नाउ मेनी सच प्लान्स विद पीपल, नॉट एग्जैक्टली प्लान्स बट जस्ट टेलिंग देम एक हाइपोथेटिकल पोर्टफोलियो अपना बनाओ. आपको क्या लगता है कि आज क्या बनाना चाहिए? आप भी तो इतने साल से इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो, आपके एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं. You may not be the most expert, but you know what's worked for you, what's not worked for you. So I'll give you examples, right? जैसे for example, जब वो अपना नवा पोर्टफोलियो बनाते हैं उसमें गोल्ड नहीं डालते, right? And then I ask them, don't you think gold has a role to play in especially very stressful times? So don't you think you want to include it? So ऐसे बहुत सारे interesting questions come up in those discussions, right? So I found that to be the most powerful way to talk to someone कि ठीक है, आपका current portfolio वो छोड़िए, उसको हम नहीं, आप सोचिए वही पैसा आपके पास है आज, कैसे लोगों, कहाँ से पैसा निकालोगे आप? Because then what happens, we get a reference point, right? So if we have so if the person is planning that I'll get my money through rental income, let's say, so then I ask them a question कि जब घर नहीं चढ़ा किराए पर तो आप कहाँ से पैसा लाओगे, right? So then we have very meaningful conversations. It is not like a hypothetical कि अच्छा हमने 5% withdrawal rate डाल दिया, inflation ले लिया 5%, return इतना ले लिया, longevity assume कर ली 100 की, और आपका plan बन गया. So of course that is the must, but I don't think so you can get away from it. But that cannot be the way you go ahead and plan for people, right? So that's how you really, it becomes very different experience as compared to anything else that you do.
Very interesting, sir. Very practical. I mean, honestly, these are the conversations which are always happen, and it's also a challenging to address. And just say, I mean, you have a rich experience of being a coach and how to put those questions right and get the right answers. Probably for every MFD, it may not be easy. I mean, they need to work towards. Probably every MFD has to become coach, consultant, then advisor. I think, that's they need to get that proficiency of coaching, what you can ask. And as we move forward, there are some relevant questions which are coming in between. I'll take those questions rather than separate Q&A. This is a question which has come from Mr. Venkatachalam. He says, Mr. Suraj, talking about retirement, returns and inflations are considered. But what about the tax component, which we never thought of?
Yeah, so I don't think so. You should worry about tax as a starting point. You should still worry about your interest, whatever returns you're going to generate. So I feel that tax planning comes in as part B, right? So I don't start by saying, Acha, what is my post-tax return? I just start by saying, what's my likely return to be? Because tax laws will change, right? So you cannot start there. But what I found was that actually, so I'll give you a very simple example. Suppose you have 1 crore rupees, which you want to invest for retirement, and you decide to invest it in a bank FD, right? So now bank FD में अगर आपको 6% मिलता है तो 6 लाख रुपए आएगा और 6 लाख पे शायद ज़्यादा टैक्स नहीं है. So first learning was very simple that actually अगर आपके corpus बहुत नहीं है, so there are many more fixed income options which are available to you because your pre-tax and post-tax get aligned quite substantially because income levels, when they're not too high, then tax doesn't come and hurt you as badly. But let's assume there's an HNI whoska ghar ka kharcha 5 lakh rupees, right? And to generate that 5 lakhs, then, obviously they have a very large corpus. And because they have a large corpus, now their income will be 60 lakhs, 70 lakhs, what they need to run their household. Abhi uspe tax component, agar wo bank mein hi dalte, right? Then suddenly becomes like, oh, I'm going to be hit by 33% tax, 30 plus surcharge plus whatever, numbers come. So then I tell them that, look, अगर ये सारा पैसा आप निकाल के डेट में डाल दो, डेट म्यूचुअल फंड में, राइट? और उसमें से सेम आप विड्रॉ करो जैसे आप बैंक में करते हैं. So then you find that actually, irrespective of whether what the tax rate is, because when you withdraw your money, bulk of it is your own principal amount because that's how SWP is structured. तो आप देखेंगे आपका जो capital gain है वो बहुत ही कम है. So even though you withdrew, a very large amount, your taxable amount becomes very less. So that's why we don't really take taxation very seriously at the start. We first tell them that, look, the best way to really get over taxation is you defer it at least, because tomorrow tax laws may change. And the best way to defer it is a mutual fund route. Because even if I go and buy a bond directly, my interest will be fully taxable. So still I may have some capital gains, but that's negligible compared to the interest income you're earning. And we tell them that this has to become the bedrock of your investments. Right, and that's how you really look at taxes. So I would say that if you can explain SWP well to customers, right, then you won't have an issue of taxation, at least on a post, because your post-tax and pre-tax, the differential is maybe 10%. It is not like 30%, which can be a killer in all other instruments.
Yeah, it's a fabulous way to look at. I mean, these are the two simple tools, but we need to use it rightly. An SIP as a tool to start my savings and investments, and SWP is a tool how I can structure my withdrawal and appropriately. And here the simple tools, but it gives a very big advantage to us. And from MF industry, I think a lot of stuff has done to promote both sides. And now comes these tools. Most of the MFDs, when they are doing a retirement planning, they're very much aware these tools are available. They nudge on that. But the one nudge which will become very difficult for them to address is like when somebody is doing a retirement planning, one convincing them why retirement planning is important. First question. It's like, this is what everyone would like to postpone. As you earlier said, 45 के बाद देखा जाएगा. Correct. And sometimes देखा जाएगा 45 तक, 55 तक, शायद seriousness आएगा after 55. Probably, somebody starts at 25 or 35, then life is very different. One question is, you can guide us how it can be nudged for the importance of the retirement plan. Second, those of us who plan retirement planning seriously, sitting with an MFD and everything is done, but they suddenly tend to give a pause and divert this money to something else because the other goal looks important. उसके पहले जो planning के समय पे ये नहीं सोचा था कुछ घर second खरीदना है. And suddenly there is a good deal comes at a neighbor's place which is being available, then I want to say buy this house. Then which is the money available? This is the only source of money which is size. The bulk of money is looking there, and they distract that entire power of compounding. How to nudge them not to break this however important it is, because this is sacrosanct. How these two nudges you help.
Yeah, so I don't think so. I have a ready-made answer to this because each situation sometimes is unique. And maybe I'll give you a couple of examples to illustrate. So first of all, if you really want to ensure that retirement is taken seriously, in your planning itself, you should ensure कि अच्छा भैया आपके और कोई खर्चे हैं जो आप सोच रहे हो. Is there a outstanding loan? Is there a wedding in the family which has to happen? Is somebody going to go to a postgraduate, studies abroad? So at least the way we have tackled so far is that we first take care of all other expenses and get it out of the way, and then we test for adequacy, right? And once you test that for adequacy after all these expenses are happened, most people start realizing that, yeah, if I don't do this, I'm going to be in deep trouble, right? And in fact, many of them have gone back and said, look, I can't afford to do a foreign education for my child because either it is that or it's my retirement. So the reality is all of us, our aspirations are large, our life goals are bigger, and our needs or requirements are not adequate to really fund them, right? And sometimes we are under because we think all our savings as one pot, we think we have always lots of money because till actually it is spent out. So, you have to really experience this, and this typically happens as your children grow up. So like in my case, my daughter studied in the US, and when I was spending 60 lakhs every year on her education, then I started realizing यार ये तो जो लग रहे थे बहुत पैसे तो गायब हो गए, बहुत जल्दी गायब हो गए, right? And similarly, if there's a wedding in the family, so जैसे ही वो पैसे खर्च होते हैं तब आपको पता चलता है कि यार this is a big challenge. So what we realized was the best way to address this is to actually take into account much before, and then those trade-offs become realistic because then you're actually helping the client. Kesha, how much do I spend? So I used to, for example, the example I gave you, I told that person that, look, you don't have to stop your child from going abroad, but let me tell you, because my daughter has studied, and that was a deal I had with her that in case, she needs one more year. So normally it's a 4-year education, but I told her I can afford only 3. Right. So the 4th year, I told her you can just take a loan and then repay it later because that's very easily available in the US. So you don't have to fund it yourself. Then I told her that, unlike other students, you have to earn your living expenses. I'm not going to give you a single penny apart from your tuition fees and your travel to India and that. So it also put those discipline in them that, okay, I have to, this money is not for free because even if you can afford, right? My sense is that these questions will never come up. These solutions will not come up till you really have that discussion. So my sense is that, this business is all about practical reality, and those experiences and talking through that, even if you don't have answers, but as you talk to them, you will get answers for many of them. Like wedding expenses, can be planned much better and much easier. It's not that you have to go and spend. You can have a decent wedding in reasonable price as well, provided you plan in advance, provided you know what is more important for you, which function you want to really spend more money on. And but if you don't do that, then certainly you realize that, yeah, those expenses will happen and then you have nothing left for your retirement. So my sense is if you take a comprehensive view of the finances, chances are you will answer this question much easier.
Fantastic. But as you put it, it's very, very challenging, and people will know only after retirement planning, and suddenly they take off that money and you are planned. Say you need to have a corpus of 2 crores, and suddenly you spend on a wedding or something else, and it comes to 1 crore. Then they get tensed up. This is not going to sufficient. That is one part I have seen.
Correct.
Second, I have seen some of my friends' parents who are retired bankers, and they were always convinced their bank is the best bank.
Correct.
And their entire money in FD. And whenever I meet them, I mean, once interest rates are coming down, they keep telling, "बेटा वो कार्पस से निकाला गया, अभी तो कार्पस कम हो गया, पता नहीं, मैं बेटा से पूछना नहीं चाहता हूँ." Then those things which are coming in.
Correct. Yeah.
And then as an planner, retirement planner, you need to take consideration of larger things. One side assumptions, other side larger other things which may crop in. That has to be a part of conversation. Then that can be a part of planning.
Correct.
Now comes the serious stage of people who won't they won't start till 40, 55, however you nudge it. That's in fact one question which has come from I think Mr. Venkatachalam himself, and how to nudge somebody who is earning well in his 30, but make him that retirement is important. And that is one question of Venkatachalam. But other question which I frame a little differently is somebody who is at 50 and still fair enough, you have 10 years to plan. But and when MFDs are planning to them, one, the sizable corpus they would have already created, and all that you need to do is your planning becomes easy. But what is that they need to do little differently to ensure, because I can't afford to get failed here. At the age of 30, I can afford to fail. And how you advise on this space?
So, at least my personal view is very simple on this, that there are many variables which are available to you as an individual, right? And you have to play with each one of them, right? So many of the MFDs, what they do is they take the entire burden on themselves to solve the problem for their clients, right? कि अच्छा इनके पास इतना पैसा है, इनका इतना खर्चा है, अब मुझे एक इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान बनाना है जो which will take care of everything. This is not the way retirement plans can be built, because they will never match up. So in my case, for example, suppose I'm meeting a 50-year-old, right, and who's inadequate, amount of money. So I always tell them that, look, आपकी retirement age कितनी? तो वो कहेगा my retirement age is 58. So can you work for 3 to 4 more years, right, and do something else and generate this kind of an income? Because अगर आप 4 साल और income add करते हो, your money will last for another 7-8 years. Right. So I put the ball back in their court and say that, can you really think about it? Then the amount of expenditure, मैंने कहा आपने कहा था कि आपको 50,000 रुपए महीने के लिए चाहिए, क्या आप 45,000 में अपना घर चला पाओगे? Right. So I just take a 10% haircut, because that's the easiest to really do that. So what I do is, because I play with every single variable, right? And so I tell them that, look, what I can do for you is that, suppose you are planning for a 8% return, right? And if you're willing, and we believe that you have a risk appetite which can help you to get to 9, that 1% addition will result in your money lasting for 5 more years. That's the power of compounding, so that's where I can add a lot of value. So when we put all these then together, and the plans then tend to match up, because he realizes कि हाँ मुझे खर्चा थोड़ा कम करना पड़ेगा, मुझे और थोड़ा काम करना चाहिए. In fact, I then tell them that, look, ultimately you're going to live till age 60. तो आप age 100, तो आप 60 पे retire कैसे हो सकते हो, right? आप उतना ही कमाइए. Can you earn 20% of your expenses, right? So you don't have to now give up कि अच्छा मैं पूरी लाइफ वही करते रहा हूँ because मुझे एक जगह रिटायर होना है. तो मैंने कहा वो रिटायरमेंट शब्द को निकाल कर कि राइट सेइंग कि ठीक है जो भी मैंने कमाया, वेरी हैप्पी, बट आई विल कंट्रीब्यूट, आई एम एंजॉयिंग माय लाइफ, बट इट टेक्स केयर ऑफ 20-25% ऑफ माय एक्सपेंसेस, right? Can you think of something that can come to you and you can do that? And so obviously then people start thinking, and then you get answers and it all matches up. So I would say the 50 guy, I use every single variable. The younger guys, unfortunately, it's not a very easy thing, but my view is that you don't have to be in a hurry to convert them in just one conversation. Right. So I would give them 2-3 tries in terms of saying, Acha, by the way, would you like to, how long do you plan to work? Right. What if you could work only for next 5 years and everything is taken care of? Right. And many a times, obviously, the challenge for them is that they don't have a savings habit. Right. So that itself is an issue. So I always tell them that the only way one saves is अगर आपके पहले दिन ही जब तनख्वाह आती है आप पैसे सेव कर लो, otherwise no saving will happen. And आप नहीं करना चाहते, then also it's fine. But without this, nothing else will happen. So many a times, I don't have this pressure of converting the guy right away. I go back to them and, I start sending some relevant material to such people. So the engagement after you've made a pitch is a very important component. So I always say that if you are seriously wanting that person to become your client, so there are 2 options you have. One is you say, okay, this guy is not my client because पता नहीं है कब सीखेगा और कब पैसे सेव करेगा. Second, you say that, yeah, look, this guy is earning 2 lakhs a month, ये 1 lakh ऐसे भी तो आराम से कर लेगा. So why not I stay engaged with the guy, right? And so I will really get them started on something small, which is absolutely insignificant, right? And then see what results I get with it. But again, I'm not in that tremendous pressure that I have to give a story and just convert them at that time. Because the whole idea is to, be with them throughout, once you believe that they are your potential clients and you want to work with them.
Fantastic soft aspect of it. So and especially for the youngsters, more you insist, they will resist. Absolutely. And accept them first.
Yeah.
And then give the story of the power of compounding, give that inspiration. And it can be a 5-6 conversations, or it could be a dozen conversations. It could be a 1-year persuasion, but it is worth doing it because the kind of corpus they create. And the corpus as a AUM you create for your kitty over next 10 to 12 years, it's a,
Correct.
I mean, small 1 lakh SIP can become 2 to 3 crores of corpus in your kitty. Like if you have 100 clients of such, you have a 300 crores of AUM, then you are done as an MFD for the life. And it's a reasonably good
So
money.
one segment which we got big success was, children of well-to-do parents. So what we
Absolutely.
realized कि उनका saving ability is just humongous because घर का कुछ खर्चा नहीं करना है, सब कुछ है, और वो ticket sizes 50,000, 60,000 का sip करते हैं, right? So we really focus on that segment for our SIPs, and that's how we get large SIPs in our business. So I always believe that वो segmentation भी जरूरी है. So again, I'm not saying that we should become greedy and not serve the retail segment and other segments. But I would say you have to first fend for yourself. Once you reach a little corpus, then you start doing charity for everyone, because now your business is in place. I tried doing the reverse, and we realized it is next to impossible. So
Absolutely. I understand, sir. Recently, I was doing one session in one of the IT corporate, it's a mega conglomerate. And I mean, this question I put to those audience, and most of them were girls. And they save almost at least 100,000 plus every month. But what I was surprising part was 70 to 80% of them, their saving is going to the bank, which they have a salary account as a recurring deposit. And advisor for them incidentally happened to be either mom and dad, because they used to save that. Means it is a big opportunity. You are very right. And if you can get them right, because how much of them money they are losing and how much tax liability they are creating, they are not aware. That opportunity cost which they are losing out, which they are not aware. If you can explain, nudge them rightly, that's a way to reach out to them. That's a first part.
So actually, I'll just share a small story here because that's very relevant for all the audience here. So when my son started this business, so मैंने आपको बताया कि मोची का लड़का मोची होता है, right? That was the story with which we started. So he said that, Dad, आपने SIP concept इतना popularize किया, I'll take it to the masses. So the first attempt that we did on SIPs was actually in slums in Bombay. He went and tied up with the NGO, and we went and made pitches there. And we realized that actually it is so difficult to communicate risk. When we must have done at least 7 to 8 such slum meetings in those slums, and even I would go with him, sit on the floor, talk to them for 2 hours, and it was really quite challenging in that sense. And in the end, we realized that yaar, inke liye PPF hi kholna better than rather than doing this. And we actually told them there's a right SBI branch opposite. वहाँ एक PPF अकाउंट है जिसमें आप 15 साल के लिए पैसा डाल दोगे तो हाथ नहीं लगेगा उसको, और आपका कुछ कॉर्पस एक दिन बन जाएगा. And that's what we ended up selling to them. Then we said, अच्छा इनके साथ नहीं हुआ, so let's go after the blue collar workers, right? So there were a few factories where we went and did that. But you'll be surprised that 95% of them have taken personal loans, and their ability to save is just zero. They're actually living beyond their means. Right. And then I told my son, if you want to do this, then obviously, you'll be living off me only for most of your life because you will never get there. And then we went to the other extreme and said, okay, we'll go after ultra HNIs and HNIs and build our business and build our AUM. And once we have the revenue, we'll go back again to this segment and start helping them once again. So it's not a straightforward thing. It looks good from the outside at times when we try to do that stuff, but we realize that it's not that straightforward in reality. Yeah.
Fabulous way to look at, sir. We can't get your ideal TG on the day one. I mean, this, Janch should be always there. And one day you find, where you belong to. Yeah, good to have that noble thing. I go and serve somebody there. And sometimes I can look at wealthy guy can give. It's a two extremes. You are rightly put it. And you can get your nice niche where you can work. And finally, you got it.
Absolutely.
Probably your nudge would have helped him to get that right. Otherwise, he would have been struggled for another couple of years more to understand himself. And that's a fantastic. And here is also one question which is coming. Even I was to put that, I thought of asking this question. Most of the MFDs, RIAs, when they are looking at the retirement corpus, how to build the retirement corpus, which is now there is no easy tool available. And what kind of income they can get there, and which are the asset classes they can put the money, and how to choose what asset class, what is the framework to look at as asset class. There is one question relevant to that which has also come from Mr. Vikas Jain, which he says, what is the best option for retirement planning whether it is a NPS or mutual fund retirement scheme, but it is a not exactly NPS, not exactly mutual fund retirement scheme. It could be a combination of a recipe we need to create. What is your advice on that, sir?
So, see, my sense is that it depends on, a lot on the individual, because ultimately what I'll do for myself, maybe I'm willing to take an extreme level of risk and achieve something, but some of them may not be right there. So I'll give you again, I like giving examples because there's nothing better than doing that. So like my daughter has a large SIP running, and her SIP is entirely in small cap funds. Right. So, and I just told her this, that I said, look, ultimately people think that small caps are very risky, right? And perhaps they are, right? But I gave her one example. I said in 2008, when the market crashed, 2009, Nifty dropped 65% peak to bottom in that year, right? Small cap index dropped 75%. So I said, आप 30 माले से गिर के मरो या 4 माले से, मौत तो दोनों में लिखी है. So why don't you do small cap? Because ultimately the averaging effect on small cap is so large or so huge that you can actually big amount of money if you really stay invested for a longer term. And also what I've seen is the industry has grown quite a bit, with almost every fund house having a large analyst team trying to improve coverage of the market, right? So I felt that even when I looked at portfolios, they were no longer punting in fly-by-night operators, which used to happen many years back. And she was very comfortable with this because she felt that what is it that I have to lose in terms of, let me try for a few years and see what happens. And anyway, my income will continue to grow. So that's one extreme, right? Where you can go and do that. Another extreme I have seen where no risk appetite of any kind. And I have given them actually, products which are like long-term gilts, funds which invest into long-term gilts, right? As a solution. So 100% into, debt. Now, in both cases, I have really respected the other guy's, understanding. And the reason I do that is very simple, that when you start going with the flow, right, then the ability to change the flow comes in much easier. If I tell them day one itself, oh, equities are the best bet, you don't understand, that will not get you anywhere, then you are getting into an argument. I said, let's get started, because the job is to get started. Now, obviously, my goal is that in both cases, I want to do some kind of an asset allocation, right? I don't want them to be on these extremes. And but that will happen over time. It is not that I have to do it on day one. And then this approach to retirement savings, I think really is very, very helpful, because then you're actually doing, a lot of justice to the person whom you are helping out and build their, retirement corpuses. But if you go with a strong view, no, you must only do equity, or you must only do this large cap fund or an index fund or something like that, then, I think you lose the game there itself.
Fantastic, sir. It's a very interesting learning, and a lot of questions which are coming in. One question which is a little personal to you, but I can put that. This question is coming from Shrikant Kulkarni, and he says, "Sir, you are very lucky enough to have your son coming to the profession, the next generation, and you could convince and to get this profession. And but what is about the succession planning others can do, and how to convince their successors?"
Yeah, so no, that's a very relevant question. So I don't think so that just because my son has got into it that there's succession planning. Because see, first of all, at least this is my personal view, that there are stages of succession planning in an MFD's life, right? So first stage is, and I'm talking of the business here. I'm not talking of the individual. I'm talking of the business. So succession planning means what? That it means that, in fact, if as an MFD you're working alone, if you were to get sick, who's going to service your clients, right? So I think it starts right there. So basically a good test of it is that even if you're not focused on the business, your business does not suffer too much. It will have an impact. You can't, and I can't say that it will be 100% that somebody will take over, because people buy people in this business. So I can't say that, just because you're out of it and somebody has come in, it will take care. But you have to make a very conscious attempt that there is somebody else who can take care of it. So the starting point of that, I always tell, is that start with the operations bit, right? Because that's the easiest to get somebody and say, okay, don't worry, sir, you want to place a trade, because most of the time requirement is, I want to buy this, I want this money. So if they know the operations person who's setting up the account, dealing with them, you actually build succession planning into the program, because you're not doing the advice part. You're only focusing on the advice part. or more important, I wouldn't call even advice, but you're actually helping, being the guiding tool for that guy. So you would really spend your time on that, and somebody else does the execution. So that's the first level, where you're just saying that you have somebody on the front end, uh, somebody on the back end, that those two levels. Then comes, where you want to monetize your business, because that is the biggest challenge. So the challenge is not, so the first part is you may get right, but monetization requires management and, ownership to be segregated, right? So it starts with a very basic legal entity structure, right? So when my son set up the business, he said, I will not take it as an individual. He set up a private limited company, right? Because now to sell off, otherwise, in every other structure, you have to write to all the, shareholders or your investors that I'm changing the code, and it's a long process within the MF industry. But when you are now segregated the business and the structure, so the firm will continue forever, right? The ownership of that can change, and your client is really segregated from that. So it starts with the legal structure that you have to set up. And a lot of people do LLPs. So whatever legal structure you think is comfortable, we felt private limited was a good idea, because yes, there are compliances and more headache initially, but in the long run, we felt that it gives us more scalability than any other business, because the whole idea is to, not just get stuck with just a small business, but really make it very large. And then comes the question of, how you set up a team and build it like a proper business. So how you inculcate those values in those individuals. So that is the next logical step of building an organization. So I would say the starting point is good. You start alone, get all the aspects. It's like setting up a McDonald's franchisee, right? Where you do everything. You clean the floor, you cook the food, you serve the customers, you do everything. But over time, you say that, okay, I will not do any of it. I'm just the owners of McDonald's, and everything else still happens as it is. And you know how now to navigate it because you've done it yourself. So in fact, we learned from the McDonald's model itself that ultimately, if we want to get somebody on board, we'll have to set those processes and have systems which will really help us, control and give the same experience. So when you ask for a burger, you get the same burger, right? You don't get different stuff. But that is much ahead. I would say it's a 10, 12-year process to complete from start to end, where it really you can do the transition. And only if you consciously do at different levels, it works. So the first task is for him, the goal is to get to 100 crores as an individual. So nobody in the team, he has only one runner boy, because whatever we do, we still have some offline work which cannot be avoided. And but apart from that, there's nobody in his firm, right? And ownership is diversified because it's between him, my daughter, and one more partner. So that's how it is structured. And so once he's 100, then we think, okay, now how we really build the other pieces and go ahead with that.
Very inspirational, very inspirational. I'm so glad, I'm so convinced that next generation coming in, and as an MF mutual fund industry is looking at 5 lakh crore ARNs in 2025 tech. And with this is the case, we need to take your son Splash to some of the road shows to inspire the next generation. This is where the opportunity lies. I'm so glad, sir.
Yeah, he still looks 18-year-old boy, so he looks very young for his age. He's
Oh, that's
28, but I
fantastic.
always joke with him, your biggest problem is you've gone to the retirees, and when they see you, they think you're a grandson or something, right? And it must be such a challenge. But it's so interesting. Age was not a barrier in dealing with them.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, sir.
So,
And fantastic. Kudos to him and wishing him all the good luck.
thanks. Yeah.
And there are a lot of questions. If there's a paucity of time, probably we may not take on the funds, etc. And but one question everyone would are keen, and we would like to know about the retirement income course which you have started. I mean, a bit of details about it. Who can take it? How that can benefit? And it's
So any individual can take it. So I created the retirement income course for everyone, actually. So it works for MFDs, it works for individual clients, it works for anyone. So the thought process in the retirement course was, so when I was really doing my own retirement, I went through certain experiences, right? And I just tried to structure it in a meaningful way. So the course starts with just articulation of key challenges, right? And putting them in specific buckets: longevity, economic risks, market risks, health, because these were the top of the mind one, and succession. So these were the four big things that we were trying to address. So, okay, the course addresses these four elements. So how do you run your household expenditure, and how do you do succession? How do you manage your health? So that kind of stuff. Then the second thing I always believe is you need to create a roadmap. So I had created my own Excel sheet. So I just, put it on the website. I said, look, you can also use this for your planning. And so that is a retirement roadmap. So you put certain assumptions, but these are not a single sheet. The first one is a pure, number crunching game and which takes care of all your expenses, right? Including your children's education, wedding, and then what is left for retirement. Then the second sheet takes you through your actual portfolio and tells you what the skew is. And whatever you target, then how far away you are from there. And the third sheet there takes you through actually a projection of what you have done. So you can see whether your money will last till what age, right? So that's the second piece that I built in. Then I cover products, right? So what I realized is that as soon as you look at fixed income, because that becomes large, people have no knowledge beyond bank deposits. So when you look at annuities, people have no idea about annuities. So today also, if I ask somebody, what's the difference between an annuity where the return of purchase price happens vis-a-vis without the return of purchase price, they say, what's purchase price, right? Because nobody has used. So when you buy any asset which is apart from the bank, you will get used to a certain vocabulary. It's a different, like mutual funds, you'll say, nah, mark to market, credit profile, duration. We'll also bring all our jargon into it. And so do the annuities do that. Similarly, RBI bonds are now available that can be bought online. So how do you really go and, pick that up should you want to do that? So I really take them through all the fixed income products in greater detail. Then I talk about how do you actually construct the portfolio, right? So what are the pieces and how you think about each of the pieces. And the most important section is the last section that, okay, now that you've done all your theory part, right? How do you put it into practice? Right. So what are the practical challenges you'll face and how you'll address them? So retirement income course is available online. I can send you the link and whoever's interested can just go and buy it,
Fantastic, sir.
and go through the entire piece. So it's about 2.5 hours of videos split across 5 sections. Right. And those are, and within them, there are those 5 sections, there are bite-sized sections, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 8 minutes. So you can really, do it. And at the end of every, module, there are quizzes there, and you also, can actually get a certificate if you want at the end of it. So that's how I've created the course. So you feel that, okay, I'm prepared for my retirement. So that's how I've created the retirement income course.
Excellent, sir. Excellent insights. And indeed, I am very grateful and thankful. Probably I'll take my commitment is this weekend. I will go to your website and do my retirement income course to get my, it is like, it's a, and a lot of people were asking for your email ID to connect with it. It's, I can give that, right? SK
Yeah, you can sk at
Suraj,
surajkaeley.com. That's my email
surajkaeley.com,
ID. So it's, my
and
website
today
is
incident.
also learn.surajkaeley.com, retire.surajkaeley.com. So I've really built on these platforms. In fact, I'm going to merge everything into one site next year.
Excellent,
And
excellent.
so people don't have to go to 2-3 places to find, because I like talking about different things, and I felt maybe I should do it in separate sites, because but then I realized that it doesn't matter. The same audience is exposed to everything I do in life. How does it matter? Why I'm making them run everywhere? So that's what I'm going to do next year. That's the task list for 23 for me.
Excellent, sir. It's thank you so much for this very insightful, indeed, a great conversation. A lot of insights would have come to everyone, and I could see the feedback from everyone. I think there is some issue with the chat section got disabled. They are putting only in Q&A, but a very good feedback. I don't know why chat section got disabled. It could be a technical issue, and it's a very learning, and it's like for MFD space, it's a huge opportunity. I look at in the next 25 years, if there is a number of people who are going to retire, there are few areas where MFDs get an opportunity. We get an opportunity to plan for the retirement, and post retirement, you have a plan for the retirement income. And it's a two ways to work for it. And you are working with a young population currently in the working towards, and the population as they get the transition planning. Then you mentioned very nicely, and the post that retirement income plan means this itself can become a niche if somebody can look at. And some insights which I also get from you is Excel sheets. Are like, this is the learning I had once I was attending one seminar where Mr. Mohan Das Pai was a key speaker, and he was telling about financial planning. And he said, don't put everything into the Excel sheet. Emotions cannot get into the Excel sheet.
Absolutely.
And and you put it very nicely. And you also mentioned about understanding the mind of the clients, managing its understanding his behavior, and then you get the tools and techniques. Then that's where the retirement planning can become much bigger, much better. There is a huge opportunity. I mean, probably one question which I couldn't take it forward was how the MFD can plan for his own or her own retirement. Probably we can have this session extended to them later, how they can plan for their retirement. Partly succession planning we spoke, but broadly it is not done. I
Yeah, so
mean,
we
I
talked
invite.
about the succession planning of the business, but as an individual, I feel that it's a very different ball game altogether.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
I invite Nishant on to conclude, and really it's an honor, sir, and it's
My pleasure.
to have you, and I look forward to meet in person and make Nishant. I can invite you back, and it is a time. We have taken little more time because when you are with Suresh sir, it can't end, and it is indeed a day. It's a day of remarkable day. Today, I was also looking at one of the parliamentary proceedings. One of the young MPs from Bangalore talking about the necessity of the financial literacy in the parliament. And the other side, we are talking about with Suresh sir and the retirement. It's a meaningful coincidence how things can shape it up. It's a learning lessons from the masters, but for me, it is a learning from the master. And thanks to the audience for their patient hearing. Thanks to Suresh sir for his sharing his wisdom. And I'm the student for that course for this Sunday. And over.
Thank you.
And Nishant, congratulations once again for your 12 years of great service. And I look forward, maybe 13 years down the line, it is a 25 years silver jubilee of Cafe Mutual, which can have little over 5 lakh ARNs or 10 lakh ARNs. And, then this forum can become much bigger. And thank you so much. And over to you, Nishant, for concluding.
Thanks a lot, KS and Suraj. A lot of food for thought for our audience today. Suraj, I personally like the way you play with the variables through small tweaks. KS, as always, you conducted it so well and covered all the relevant aspects. And finally, I thank each one of you for being such a wonderful audience. Have a great day at work, guys. Bye.